What's up, everybody? We have another episode of Fresh Out of College. This week, this episode is going to be our short-term memory and forecast for the weekend. So let's just hop right into it. Ryota, what's the first short-term memory we have update?
Yeah, so NBA bubble is obviously up and running. So let's talk a lot about that. Talk about that because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, I'm
So
down.
some of the most of the teams I'm played 2 games. So it's just kind of update on the standings. A lot of the top teams are going to be where they are, but it's Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Rockets, Jazz, Thunder, Mavericks, and eighth place is Memphis, which is 19 games behind. And then surprisingly, I think we both didn't expect the Spurs to be ninth, which are 21 games behind. And then we have the Blazers, Pelicans, Kings, and Suns following.
Yeah, so for the West, I'm kind of surprised that, and you're obviously a Pelicans fan. I'm kind of surprised that they're not making more of a push for that eighth spot. But I'm not as surprised for the Spurs just because, Popovich is the coach and they're always so well coached. They always have that kind of structure in place. The Blazers, they were 1-1 this weekend. So I'm looking for them to make a push, and they have to be 4 games, right? To
force that
enforce that
play-in
playoff
situation.
So currently they're 2.5. So would that make them? That would make them able to play the 4 games or that 1 game push. What teams have you been excited about in the West? What teams have surprised you just off the bat?
Yeah, I've only been able to watch, a couple of games because, I've
Of
been
course.
busy working a little bit in the evenings, but I've watched the Thunder play and I was surprised in how good they were playing. Again, they're in the playoffs. There's no doubt. But that was one of the first times I watched the Thunder play at all this whole entire year. And I was really impressed how well CP3 fit into that team.
They are a fun team.
Knowing about his history in Houston, and a lot of people really didn't like him, but I was watching, man, he was cooking. And then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Gallinari, and Adams, and some young guys, like Darius Bazley, Terrence Ferguson, Diaw, and Andre Robertson's back now too. And that's a pretty well-rounded team. It's like a Spurs team to me, or a Pacers kind of team to me.
Yeah. I think he did his stint in Houston, kind of showed maybe not the side that he wanted to. And I'm not saying like his style did or his play, because his play, he was definitely impactful. And we saw that when they played Golden State a few years ago, and he went down with injury, and then they ended up losing that series. So I think in Houston, it was just a culmination of not getting over the hump. And then, you have Harden, who is obviously the best player on the team. And it was kind of like, if we're not winning, like he was kind of the scapegoat and to be pointed at. But I think right now, the expectations are that the Thunder aren't supposed to be that good. They're young, especially since they just shipped Paul George off last season.
Right.
So I think this was kind of like more not as high pressure to win. And I think you're right. I think he fits well into that team. And I think a lot of people weren't expecting it.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, can I add on to that?
No, keep going.
I kind of think the CP3, deal going to Oklahoma. I think it was. I mean, we talked about Teddy Bridgewater last week. I think it's kind of a similar situation. I think the Thunder were kind of going and thinking, okay, we're going to compete, but we're also trying to rebuild, trying to build some young experience up. And as good as Chris Paul is, I'm not saying he's like Bridgewater. He's much better. He's almost an elite player. But I think that's kind of the expectation that they had, right? Well, we're going to try to compete, but we're not going to try to be, top 4 for if we don't even make the playoffs, we'll probably be okay. But the main thing is we want these young guys to get better, maybe have some veteran leadership through Chris Paul. But I think it just worked out really well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that is good. The Panthers, yeah. So last week we did talk about the Panthers and that whole situation. Make sure to go check that out. But you're right. I think the Thunder were in a position where they were super young, but they could take on the CP3 contract. They were able to. And I think before the season started, I think they wanted to ship him out. I think they wanted to trade him, to have that flexibility, get more draft capital. But yeah, I mean, they performed really well. They're a surprising team. They're a dark horse for sure. I think they're kind of, in a sense, the most underrated team Maybe the Nuggets are underrated too, but I think they're one of the Thunder in the West are at least the most underrated. And maybe you'll say the Blazers or maybe the Pelicans too, but wow, they've been good.
Yeah.
Lakers and Clippers played in the first game. I was able to watch that. LeBron kind of looked a little bit off, but ended up having that game-winning shot. So I mean, he's still playing at a he. I don't think he's taking a step back. Um, Anthony Davis has definitely kept on going. I think he scored 34 points, but yeah,
So you watched the whole game. How did JR and did
I
Dion
didn't watch
play?
the whole. Okay, yeah, so I didn't watch the whole game, but I got to see the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, at that point, it did seem like LeBron was sort of taking over, and it's a fun game to watch, and it's a kind of a teaser for the
Hmm.
playoffs, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, a lot of okay, yeah, let's go into the East, and you wanna run down the standings, and then we can talk more about it.
Yeah, so the East is not as competitive as at least at the bottom, because there's only one team who's trying to contend. So it's the
Yeah,
Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, Heat, Pacers, Sixers, Magic, Nets, and then the ninth place Wizards are 29 and a half. So they have a lot of ground to cover, which I don't
mhm.
know if they will be able to.
Yeah, there's 7 games back, and you need to be 4 games back of the Nets. Yeah. The East, I don't know, did the Wizards how did the Wizards do this weekend? I wasn't really paying attention to them.
Let me check. I
Um,
actually watched the Nets play, and they look surprisingly good.
really?
Yeah, I
Interesting.
mean, Karis
Because they did
LeVert's
lose
kind
a
of
lot of
taking over.
uh-huh.
Um, they also have, I mean, Joe Harris and Jarrett Allen. Or actually, no, Allen. I think Allen was playing. Um, but I mean, they definitely weren't expected to. I mean, we almost thought the Wizards would take over, right? Because they don't have Kyrie or KD, or I think even Dinwiddie's not playing. This is so
Yep.
long ago we talked about this, but
I do think
let
it's
me
because
check.
I don't think Bradley Beal's playing,
No, he's not. That
um,
was the other thing. Yeah.
and Bertans isn't playing, so it's kinda like,
Yes.
where how competitive can you be when you lose, like, one of your
Right.
top 2 players? I'm
Right.
looking up the schedule for the
So
Wizards.
they lost to the Nets. That's what happened,
Okay.
which was a big loss for them, and they also
It's a
lost to the Suns, so they're 0-2 right now.
So, that is a huge loss. That kinda cements it, so now they have to play the Pacers, the 76ers, Pelicans, the Thunder, so it gets nitty and gritty there. I think for the Wizards, at least, I think that was their
Mhm.
shot to kind of boost up in the rankings,
Yeah. Another
but
big news out of the East, Jonathan Isaac tore the ACL,
yep,
and we
yep,
thought the Magic would kind of be a dark horse in that 7th place spot as well, but when you lose a defensive guy like that,
mhm.
I I don't really know if they're the same anymore,
No, yeah, I mean, you're
unfortunately.
right. He definitely was a defensive presence, and I think he was just getting into his own, really. He's young. It's it's really sad to see, I think, because he is so young and he has so much potential, and now he's probably gonna be out, a little bit at the start of the next season too, so it's a huge blow for the Magic, but they also keep on winning. Vucevic is very good there.
Mm.
Markel Fultz is trying to find some, offensive game there, and I think he's fit well with that team. Because I think we talked about it a few weeks ago, how the 76ers, Boston, they kinda have, like, a winning environment, and sometimes that can bring pressure on some of these younger guys, so I think talking about Marco Fultz, I think coming to the Magic in Orlando, I think it has given him a new direction, and kind of redeeming that number 1 pick, because Jason Tatum was picked 2 picks after
Yeah.
him.
And then another big news out of the East, the Raptors played the Lakers, and the Raptors won,
Yep,
which I think shocked a lot of people. The final
yep.
score is 107 to 92. No, 92. What am I saying? 92. Top scorers, Kyle Lowry had 33.
Yeah, LeBron.
Anunoby had 23
Oh,
for
who
the
had
Raptors.
23?
Anunoby, OG
Anunoby.
Anunoby for the
Oh,
Raptors.
GM.
LeBron James only had 20. AD was held to 14. He had to score 34 his first game.
Mhm.
But the Raptors make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think LeBron said it best. I think the Raptors won the championship for a reason. I don't think it was just for Kawhi. I think they are one of the best coached teams, in the league, and I think the defense that they play is suffocating, and like we saw, only holding Anthony Davis to to what they held him. I think that's a big indication of how good they are and
Mhm.
how they don't need to have the star players. I think Kawhi Leonard obviously put him over the top, but they are still one of the top teams in the league. Um, and they can really compete with the Bucks, I think. I personally think that, a lot of people are saying the Bucks or the Celtics might go into the
Mhm.
finals, but I wouldn't discount the Raptors and what they do, especially in a 7-game series.
Mhm. That's a
But
good point.
yeah, the Bucks also look very, very good.
Yeah, it's
Giannis
pretty
is
usual.
unreal. Um, and it's kind of the season of NBA duos, I think.
Mhm.
I think we saw with Brown and Tatum when they played. Brown had 30 points, 6 rebounds, and Tatum had 34 points. So combining for 64 points against, I believe it was the Trailblazers, and they ended up edging them out. So, I mean, yeah. And then Harden and Westbrook went for, um, wow, they went for 70 points against the Mavericks, and I actually got to see that game, and the Mavericks were winning, and they're up like 10 points throughout the
Mhm.
whole game, but then Harden being Harden, able to take over the game,
Mhm.
they led he led him back, and forced overtime and won that game. But I mean, just how the star players are kind of showing out in this shortened season is really fun to see.
Cool fact. Guess who led who led the game in rebounds against for the Lakers Raptors game?
Who led? Okay,
You would
let's.
never guess.
I've never.
I just looked at it, I was like, "Holy crap." He's a Raptor.
Kyle Lowry,
Yeah. He had
point guard,
14.
14.
14 rebounds.
And
Maybe
I
didn't
think
even
I think
get
that speaks to the defense they run. I do, because I think most of that is, the big guys boxing out the other big guys and then having the guards come down for the rebounds. Yeah,
big as
he's
Kyle
always
Lowry.
performed well, and he's
He's
rebounded well for
6
his
foot.
position. 6
He had
foot?
14 rebounds. That's unbelievable. That
Yeah.
either speaks a lot to Lowry or how bad the Lakers played. I don't
I
know.
think it speaks more to the defense that the Raptors play,
Yeah.
but
I mean, they do
it's
have big men down there. Ibaka, Siakam, Gasol.
mhm.
Imagine if they still had Jonas.
Yeah. So they traded Jonas from Memphis to Memphis and
What
got
did they get
Marcus
in
Gasol.
return?
So who would you
Oh,
rather
they
have?
Valanciunas.
You'd rather have Valanciunas instead of Marcus Gasol?
He's
I
been
guess that's
scoring.
fair.
He's a great scorer. I mean, I think Gasol's kind of. Well, let's talk about it. So I'm gonna pull up Jonas Valanciunas. For me, I think from a fantasy perspective, I think Jonas Valanciunas puts up a lot the last couple of
He
years.
he does put up boards. He gets a lot of boards.
So
Yeah.
this year he's averaging about 15 points, 11 rebounds. Last year he averaged 10 rebounds, 20 points.
For Marcus Gasol. Last season he averaged 7.6 points. So definitely not the offensive scorer he wants. And then what did Valanciunas average?
About 16 last year,
16.
15.
Okay.
He's
Well,
also 28 compared to Gasol's 35.
yeah, that's
My
true.
point is, I think
I don't know why they
you
did the
lost
trade.
you lost the debate, but it's
Okay,
okay.
I don't know
It's
why
all
they
good.
lost the trade. I don't
You
know
can't
why they
win
did it.
everyone.
But
You
but
can't
they
win
ended up winning
everyone.
the NBA finals, so it's
They
fine.
did.
All right. Any more updates on the NBA? Anything you want to talk about more?
Not that I can think of. Yeah, I covered Jonathan Isaac's injury. TJ Warren had a huge game,
He did.
which I
53
don't think
points.
any of us expected.
It's funny because now everybody is, after that huge performance, now everybody's like, when are they playing the Heat? Because of the whole feud with Jimmy Butler.
Right. Yeah, they did. I saw that on social media too.
But Jimmy Butler's definitely going to just shut him down. It's still funny though. It's good for TJ. Um, yeah, and obviously the Pacers need it because they've lost a lot of the players, all the key
They really
players.
need him.
I also think Victor Oladipo is coming back soon. I think he said he was going to try and play. So
Oh,
be on the lookout for that.
okay.
All right,
Good
in
news
the
for the
MLB, this has
Pacers.
been huge. Outbreaks are the main theme, COVID outbreaks, which is sad to see. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, there's been a lot. I think the MLB games that have been postponed, it's hit me hard, fantasy wise.
Same.
15 total games have been suspended or have been postponed this week or since Friday.
Hmm.
So, and then Rob Manfred just came out and said that he wants to keep on playing, but players have to do a better job of sticking with protocol. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think. I mean, when we talked about this kind of stuff 3 weeks ago, I think we knew this was coming, right? There was going to be something that happened because it's not a bubble situation, and MLB it's impossible to do a bubble situation, so they had no choice really. It's either this or they don't play at all. But I think Manfred's right. When players don't take responsibility, I mean, it's impossible to control every single MLB player because everyone's different. They have different views on things, and some might not believe it's a real thing, and they don't realize the dangers of it. But I think this is an important learning lesson. I think like shutting down games and Manfred coming out and telling people, I think is a good step because if they don't shut down games and Manfred doesn't really say anything, the players don't learn from it. But I think when you're a Miami Marlin or a Philadelphia Philly player or someone that's or a Cardinal player who's been affected by this and you have your game shut down, then they realize, oh, okay, I can't go out of my way and do something I shouldn't do. Because according to reports, two Cardinal pitchers, they went out like just on a boat and like didn't social distance, didn't wear masks. Um, I think another team they might have gone to a casino or something. So I don't know how true that all is, but that's what I've read from reports. And yeah, I mean, when you do that, you're putting others at risk. And when you're in close proximity, even in baseball, you're really close to other people and even your family, it's harmful. And, the hard thing about this is if everyone doesn't follow the rules, no one wins, right? This is like everyone needs to be on it. And that's the hard part about it because, again, these are adults. They're going to be a little bit more independent and do whatever they want. So it is worrisome. We've seen some players opt out, right? But yeah, we'll see where this goes. I hope it gets better.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you're getting paid as much as MLB players are getting paid, then I think they should at least be mindful of keeping precautions. Because, like you said, if a few players don't do this and they end up shutting down the league, then that affects the whole everybody else. It's just not them. So I think they do need to take an effect. And you're right, Lorenzo Cain just opted out. Jonas Cespedes kind of did it prematurely. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we should talk about that later
That whole
too.
story is wacky. And then Francisco Liriano, who was a free agent but had, I guess, reports of multiple teams offering him up, has now opted out as well.
Yeah, and I mean,
But
again, the hard thing about it is like, let's say if we're both MLB players and we go out to get a drink in a restaurant that's not following guidelines, state guidelines, and we're not wearing masks and we're not, following good, you know, habits, and then we go to the stadium knowing that we did that. That's the problem, right? Because if let's say one of our teammates, let's say I don't know Sean or something, right, didn't know we did that and came and talked to us and hung out and you know at the stadium like they normally would, he's putting himself at risk and that's our fault because we didn't say we went out and I mean we should go out in the first place, but that's the problem, right? When people don't care, they don't say it, they don't, you know, yeah. Anyways, I'm just kind of
yeah,
pissed about it, I guess.
I think it's also very interesting because you're right. This is not a bubble situation. They're not confined to a hotel or to a
Hmm.
certain area. And for sports that are looking to uh, uh, reboot back up, like the NFL and college football, I think this is a big um, kind of thing to look at. Like you will not be able to control your players, and you can put as many like guidelines in, but if you're not in a bubble situation, then you're gonna have outbreaks. And the key is to kind of control those outbreaks, maybe at the expense of postponing games. And one last thing about this is MLB games you can play as I mean, there's so many you can play every single day, You can have back to back sometimes, right? Two a day. But in the NFL, it's different. You can't do that. You really can't. If you don't play Sunday, you could play Tuesday, but that you have to prepare for the next so it's very different. And that's why I don't think the NFL will play. But that's me.
That's a really good point. I mean, we haven't really talked about it, I guess, comparing, but that's a really good point because especially with football, there's such a routine. I think, yeah, and postponing a day or two. I mean, you can't do that, right? And plus, there's more players, so you have to take even more precautions for testing and ensuring. So that's a really good point. I didn't. Yes, and again, I think they're gonna have to they're gonna probably monitor the MLB really closely and see how they're doing it to try to learn from, So I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's tough because like this is the last thing I'll talk about, then we'll move on. But you know how the MLB is placed, you have to pass two COVID tests back to back.
Mhm.
But sometimes that lasts 2 weeks or or maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. So it's gonna really affect the NFL since you're only playing 3 games in 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And so each game is even more. Um,
Fantasy football will be very difficult then.
Gosh, man, I have been in fantasy baseball, I have taken such a big hit.
I
I've
think
lo
I think it's our year to skip fantasy football maybe then. Not even
Yeah,
worth
let me keep the
doing
trophy
a
for another
buy-in.
year.
We'll keep our buy-in money. Last thing for MLB, Mike Trout and his wife Jessica had their first baby.
Oh, nice.
Big news
Congrats.
there. Beckham Aaron Trout, and he's supposed to return and play the Mariners today, which is very unfortunate news as a Mariner fan. But I'm happy because I'm a fantasy owner of him.
Oh
But
my
good for them.
gosh.
I'm glad that Mike Trout's playing, but also got to spend time with his wife and baby. So
Yeah.
good for him.
And I think he will be I assume he would be quarantining now, especially with the newborn.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, he doesn't need to quarantine because he's just going home.
You're right. No, sorry,
Or
sorry. What I meant is, he'll probably take even more precaution,
oh yeah, exactly.
with the
Yes.
newborn on the way, sorry.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so in the NFL, some news in the NFL, a few more players are opting out as we've been seeing. The Patriots have been hit especially hard,
Could be
with
part of a
their
scheme.
opt-outs.
They're conspiracy theories.
Is there
Trying to
actually that
tank.
they're tanking?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Conspiracy theories. You never know what's going on over there with Bill Belichick. They're really tanking for that quarterback.
You know, it's very interesting to talk about this, and we'll probably talk about this in another podcast, but, the NBA or college basketball, a lot of people are returning now and not doing the
Yeah.
draft.
Back to school,
So what
right?
does this have to do with, teams that have tanked and have been so bad? They might not get the top player. Um, yeah, and then Joey Bosa received a 5-year deal worth $135 million. Why is this important? Well, it's a lot of money. He's also a cornerstone for the Chargers, but it's $10 million more than Myles Garrett's new contract. So we're seeing the market continue to be reset
Mhm.
back and forth. So, yeah, pretty big contracts handed out.
Yeah.
MLS news. What do you have?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to talk about because the Sounders are out. But the semifinals are up on Wednesday and Thursday. We have the Philadelphia Union playing the Portland Timbers, which you don't need to watch because the Timbers suck. So you don't need to watch that game on Wednesday. But if you feel like it, maybe you can tune in, root for the Union. And then on Thursday, Orlando versus Minnesota, which I think will be a little bit more interesting game to watch. Actually, no jokes at all, but I think that would be a fun game. Orlando did upset LAFC in PKs, and yeah, should be fun MLS even without the Sounders, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, soccer's keep on going. And when is the final? Is the final date set? The final game
It
set?
probably is set, but I was not good enough to check that date yet. But I'll give
No
it to you guys
worries.
next week.
No worries. WNBA, big news. Sabrina Ionescu is expected to be out a month with an ankle injury. One of the bigger known WNBA players. She was just getting started, so hope for a
Yeah,
speedy recovery. It's a huge loss. Tough to see. She was really great to see for the first few games.
yeah,
So
she played really
hopefully
well
she'll
our
be back.
second game, so it's unfortunate.
She'll probably need to use that ankle brace now. But man, that's tough. Injuries are tough for I mean obviously for everybody, but even for a big star like her.
Yeah, totally.
Um, yeah. So the standings. Do you want to run down the standings for the
Yeah,
WNBA?
so far, first place teams are 3-1, include Chicago Sky, Washington Mystics, Minnesota Lynx, and most importantly, the Seattle Storm. We have a couple 2-2 teams: Los Angeles Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, Indiana Fever, Atlanta Dream, Dallas Wings, and Phoenix Mercury. And then we have two teams, Connecticut Sun and New York Liberty, who are both 0-4. And then the Liberty again are out with are
Yeah.
without Ionescu, which probably makes a huge reason
Yes,
why that they're
it
on four.
does.
So
So we'll keep everybody updated that. We'll watch as many as we can, and yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's very interesting. We'll see how the New York Liberty fare, and then we'll also keep close tabs on the Seattle Storm, of course. PGA news. Justin Thomas wins this week's tournament, and this week's tournament was the FedEx St. Jude's Invitational. So congrats to Justin Thomas on the huge win. He started Sunday in 5th place and was able to rally himself up to first. So congrats to that. He finished 13 under. And then that's the PGA news for that. And I think Brooks Kapka, who we'll talk about in the forecast for the weekend, finished second. So he is slowly getting up there and will compete for the number one title next or championship next week.
Yeah, we're starting to see more of those familiar names ranked to the top. Justin Thomas kind of struggled the past couple of weeks, and we've seen, maybe some names that non-golf followers aren't so familiar with. But yeah, we see Brooks Koepka coming in second too. So yeah, it'll be exciting. We'll talk about the forecast of the weekend in a little bit.
Yeah.
In soccer, European soccer, my favorite team, Arsenal, won the FA Cup against Chelsea, which is a huge win because I hate Chelsea as a rival.
You know what? I actually did see some highlights about that
Yeah,
because didn't what's that guy's name?
Pulisic,
Yeah, didn't he get injured?
he got injured. I haven't read exactly what it was, but um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much English soccer's. It's coming to a close. The season's pretty much over. FA Cup was kind of the final things to go, and then
Okay.
some teams are preparing for the European Championship, which is actually supposed to start, I think, this month. I
Right.
haven't checked up on it. If all things are doing good, in terms
Uh-huh.
of COVID measures, I think that should be. I mean, I always watch Champions League; it's great fun, you know, tournament to watch. But we'll definitely keep tabs on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. News in the XFL, the Extreme Football League. Dwayne The Rock Johnson and some investors actually bought the league for, guess how much they bought the league for, Ryota?
I already saw the notes, but I'll guess 20 million.
No, you already saw it. It's 15 million. Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess I shouldn't have put it on the notes. But yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, that's not a lot of money for a league. I guess the league is not really,
No,
um, as dominant or as prominent as the NFL. But
yeah,
if you can ever get buy a league for 15 million, you have potential to increase your earnings. So
yeah,
congrats for Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He was most notably known for WWE, which is kind of like the spin-off, the XFL. So we'll see how he does that with the league, especially during this
yeah.
time.
It's
Um,
unfortunate that the XFL, I mean, it was kind of up and going and then it had to close, right? Because of
yep,
COVID.
exactly.
They shut it down. And I have a couple former coworkers who, work for the Dragons. It sucked for them that they put so much work into it, it just kind of came to a close. But it's good, there's still hope,
Yeah.
once all this pandemic's over. So excited to see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll be a Seattle Dragons season ticket holder in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, I
You
mean, I
talk
think it
about it
is
on the
fun.
bucket list later. Who knows?
Well, it's interesting because the Seahawks, the tickets, are super expensive, but then this is also a very nice alternative if you're not as, it's a good way to get into football as well. The
Yeah.
games
I
are
think
a
it's
lot
probably one
more,
of their selling points, for
yeah,
ticket sales purposes.
for
If you
sure.
can't afford Seahawks game, you can afford Dragons games.
Yeah,
But
and I think just being in CenturyLink is an experience in itself.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's our short-term memory, our weekly roundup there. So forecast for the weekend. What do you have, Ryota? Oh wait, actually, we're gonna do something fun. Okay, so I'm gonna name off the schedule, the NBA schedule, and Ryota is gonna have to give me who's gonna win, so his team to win, and then one player he thinks will win. So it's gonna be, for instance, it's gonna be Spurs, DeMar DeRozan. And it's gonna be super quick.
Okay.
All right, ready?
And then so wait, question. So is this like a competition? Like do I get to do you owe me a beer or something if I win or a pass or how does this work? Are we just
Okay,
doing it
this
for
is what
fun?
I'll do. If you name Okay, so there's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games. There's 11 games. If you go 6 for 11, and if we remember to look back on our tape, then I'll buy you your bucket of balls for golf.
Wow, okay. All right. I'll take
Okay,
that.
ready?
6 for 11.
Yeah, 6 for 11. Just because I
Okay.
think you have no chance of doing this.
What if I get 11 for 11? Then what are you going to owe me?
I'll give you well, okay, then I'll buy you a round of 18 golf.
No, you won't. That's so expensive.
You're right, I won't. But it's the thought that counts.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
I got to get 6
So,
for 11. Let's go.
do you know what to do here? It's gonna be super fire, okay? You can't really think about it much.
Yeah.
Okay? Jazz versus Spurs, 10 a.m.
Spurs, DeJounte Murray.
Thunder versus Grizzlies, 1 p.m. NBA TV.
Thunder, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Kings versus Nets, 2 p.m.
Kings, Darren Fox.
Magic versus 76ers, 2 p.m. TNT.
76ers, Simmons.
Wizards versus Pelicans, 5 p.m.
Pelicans, Drew Holiday.
Nightcap, Celtics versus Raptors on TNT.
Raptors, Siakam.
Okay, now Saturday. We're going to go Clippers versus Trailblazers, 10 a.m. TNT.
Clippers. No. Trailblazers, Dame.
Jazz versus Nuggets, 12:30 on TNT.
Nuggets, Bull.
Lakers versus Pacers, 3 p.m. TNT.
Pacers, TJ Warren.
Suns versus Heat, 4:30.
Heat, Jimmy Buckets.
Last game of the night, Bucks versus Mavericks, 5:30 ESPN.
Ooh. I'm gonna go Bucks, Middleton.
Yeah, that's probably the best. Yeah, that's gonna be a really good game, though. I think.
Yeah,
I'm
I didn't even
intrigued by
realize that they're
that.
playing each other. Yeah,
Yeah, the Mavericks always struggle late in the game, though, so it's so tough to
their defense, right? I think their defense lets them down.
and they just can't make the shots that they made earlier in the game. That was one of they couldn't really close games.
Mhm.
Maybe it's because you have such a young team with
Yeah,
Luka. How old is Luka? Like 21?
yeah, I think
And
so.
then Porzingis is just about to turn 25. It's just too young of a team, I think.
Porzingis is about to turn 25. He's that young?
Yeah, he's very
Wow.
young.
He seems like he's been in the league for like 20 years.
That's what happens when you're on the Knicks.
He was also injured, I guess. So yeah, we just kind of
Yeah.
like forgot about him.
Um,
Cool.
but what are some games that you are looking forward to?
I think the Clippers Trailblazers game. I'm excited to see how the Blazers are. I mean, they're back to their normal team. They have Nurkic back, so
Mhm.
that's really good news for them. And he's such a vital, I think, underrated, vital player for that team. And having Whiteside off the bench is, I think, a good new upgrade for the second rotation. I think the Clippers losing. I think they're looking to bounce back. So I'm excited to see what Dame does. Obviously, he's my
Yeah.
guy to watch, and yeah.
I think I'm excited for the Raptors versus Celtics. I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum,
Hmm.
I think they're the next big thing to happen in the NBA. And then you kind of have the defending championships in the Raptors and not really a star player in a sense. I mean, you do have Siakam, I'm not discounting that, but
Hmm.
not as flashy as your Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. So I'm really excited to see that, and that's going to be on Friday at 6 p.m. on TNT. So I'm definitely going to check out that game. I'm watching that game for sure. But yeah, it's a fun, exciting slate to have, and NBA is finally back, so it's good to have.
Yeah.
Um, what's up next for the PGA Circa?
Yes. So we have the PGA Championship, one of the bigger tournaments coming up this weekend. The past 2 year winners, or sorry, the winners from the past 2 years is Brooks Koepka. So he
Mhm.
won in 2019 and 18. So he's looking to defend his third title here, and it's going to be at TPC Harding Park. And you don't really hear players defending a trophy 3 years in a row, especially in golf. But
Yeah,
Brooks Koepka, I mean, he looked good this past weekend. He was tied second, and he's slowly starting to find his groove. And he sat out for 1 weekend because I think his caddy
right.
was tested positive a couple of weeks ago. So he's really starting to get back into the groove of things, starting to see his name, higher up in the rankings. So I wouldn't doubt, if he. I would be surprised if he held his title, but also we've seen a lot of familiar names at the top of the leaderboard, including Daniel Berger, Morikawa, Tony Finau. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be a fun tournament.
Yeah, and then the purse is 11 million. I don't know how that stacks up with other tournaments, but this is definitely one of the bigger tournaments. Um, and I think it's a good bet to maybe have Brooks Koepka be in the top 10 because he has finished
Hmm.
in the top 10 for a while now, and he
Hmm.
is one of the top premier golfers. But it is definitely hard to win 3 straight. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens, and we'll update you guys next week on that. But that concludes our weekly rundown. Thanks for listening and joining. We will see you next Tuesday for another weekly rundown. But yeah, see you guys.
Peace.